great rabbis of yesteryear. Now, the end of Shvat, Lamed Shvat, marked the Hilula reported over of a great Yemenite rabbi. His name was Rabbi Aharon HaKohen Z'tl. He was born in English 1841 and passed away in 1934. He was one of the great rabbis of Teman, of Yemen, respectively, towards especially the end of the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century. He was a Diyan, a judge, and a Rosh Yeshiva of the Beit Sharabi, great yeshiva, famous place we've spoken about on various occasions before. Let's explore a few of the great highlights of his life. Now, he was born in Sana'a. Very interesting enough, that was, as we said before, in 1841. I believe his father's name was Rav Shalom HaKohen, who happened to be, I think, from a great family of Kohanim, Yuchasim, with a great lineage of the Kohanic status in of itself. And his mother, I believe, was a daughter from the family of the Sa'adi family in of itself, very famous family in Sana'a, which was spoken about many occasions before. There was a line of great Talmidei Chachamim from the great, let's just say, rabbis, a great generation after the Galut Moza, which I would recommend everyone to look into, and including among the great members of the family, including Rabbi Yehuda Tzadi and his son Rabbi Yechiyah Tzadi. I believe they were very much connected to the famous Maharitz also. Okay, now it's actually interesting. While he was at a youngish age, let's just say, he studied with the great Rabbi Hamari, as they say, and which he would learn inside the yeshiva of Rabbi Chaim Korach, another great rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before. I believe he actually arranged for his studies at the famous yeshiva, also popularly known as a Beit al-Sheikh, which is spoken about on various occasions before. And over there, they would learn great amounts of Torah among the great people over there. I think that the elite scholars of that generation gathered to study inside this place. In fact, Rav Korach valued the great student so much, he became close to him, and he was like his senior student of the group, let's just say, of famous students. And I think eventually he would get married. I believe this was at a period later. I believe it reported over in the year 1864, so about 23 years of age at that point in time, 22. And I think his wife's name was Rabbanit Gazal. He was the daughter, I believe, of Rabbi Salam, who happened to be from the family of the Gendel family, the Gandil family in of itself. Then come on the year 1905. It was a time period of war, unfortunately, where the Imam's war against the Turks. At that point in time, the capital city of Sana'a was destroyed. And that year there was drought and there's famine and there was so much trouble. And this led to absolute devastation, especially for the Jewish community, which is spoken about on various occasions before, especially rabbinic structure and the great Chachamim Torah student structure in of itself really suffered, unfortunately, at that point in time. I think some of the family and the sons had passed away, unfortunately, and that yeshiva, which he was learning in, Beit al-Sheikh, a great yeshiva, I believe closed at that point in time, and he had to go into Galut for several months with his whole family, I think, to a village called Sayan, which was located, let's just say, a half day's walk, let's say, from the capital city of Sana'a in of itself. So that was reported over. The famine would eventually end, and he would return to Sana'a with various other great different rabbis. Actually, I think they moved at the same time with him, and he would go on to study with the son of Avram and the great rabbis of that generation. He would also couple his Torah learning, which was pretty much learning the whole day, with a trade. I believe he worked in sewing industry and mending, let's say, expensive silk garments. That was his business, let's just say. And I think it was operating and catering for dignitaries and various different ministers of the Yemenite kingdom. And he would earn a very respectful living within regards to this trade over here. He received abundance bracha, as we can say, because of all the different workings he did. Now, it's actually interesting. Let's explore some of the public activity he did. I believe, come what the year, Hey Tafresh Samachay. I think this was after Imam Yahya would conquer Sana'a. He was one of the 4 rabbis who served, let's just say, as the highest spiritual authority in Sana'a. And many of them took care of the entire community's needs, especially working with their authority. It's actually reported over that the Imam Yahya Hamid really appreciated Rabbi Aharon, and the great personality he actually had really valued it and appointed him as the head of the rabbis I believe after several months he would be able to convince the imam to resign from his position, but he remained as a spiritual authority for every matter in the community. It's actually interesting. He would actually serve in Dainut over there. I think it was the second judge, the deputy position of the Bet Din, famous Bet Din of Rabbi Yitzchak HaLevi, a great rabbi we've spoken about before on various occasions. Before, he was a chief rabbi of the Yemenite Jews, I believe, for a staggering 30-year period in of itself. And he happened to be, I think, the Bet Din also at that place. There was various different letters, responses, and authorizations that he would sign. He was reported over, he would always be like smiling and positive in his face. He wouldn't speak, like, for example, with regards to court cases, let's say harshly against litigants, and really treated everyone with utmost respect, and obviously didn't falter when it came to judging people. And he would also give a lot of charity away, especially to the needy. It was reported over. He saw the importance of doing justice and charity at the same time. And I believe they would actually study in the Beit Midrash for a 10-year period, along with his son Rabbi Avraham, in the Beit Midrash of Rabbi Chia Kapach. Now, the great rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before. The Kapach rabbinic dynasty was a very famous dynasty, let's just say, in Yemen at that point in time, in late 1800s and early 1900s. I believe Rabbi Aharon HaKohen would actually open a yeshiva. He would head together with his son. I think there was a synagogue of Rav Hodar, I believe, was the name of was connected to him, and they called it the Kanis Beit Shra'abi, I believe, which was a very, very famous place in of itself, and I recommend everyone to look into that. And they would learn Kabbalah, and then I think some they would study Gemara and Rambam, gathering explanation, understanding about the whole structure in of itself. They would learn Rambam and Shulchan Aruch and various different poskim by the great scholars, taught by the scholars. It was reported over he would actually help a lot within regards to Shalom Bayit. Remember, he was named Aharon HaKohen, and the most famous, probably biblical person was Aharon HaKohen when it came to making Shalom Bayit among people, especially in the Midbaras. Many Midrashim, I believe, report over, and maybe a Gemara also does that. Many visitors will come to him asking him for advice, for marriage advice, and to keep the peace in the family and himself. He was the head of various different tzedakah funds, charity funds, named after Rabbi Meir Bal Hanes. I think they would raise money for the poor people in Eretz Yisrael also. Rabbi Amram Korach actually really compliments him to the highest degree, calling him how compassionate he was towards the poor, how he would visit scholars and would take care of their needs, and how he respected everyone. Which, remember, we've spoken about Rabbi Amram Korach on various occasions before in this series. I think in 1910, there was, it was reported over, there was happening that actually happened in his Seder night, when I think it was the second night of Seder, someone was actually from the Asana Court of Justice would actually come visit his house and actually attested to what a wonderful man he was, how upright he was, how he had this radiant smile on his face, and how different dignitaries would actually really, really respect him, and not just Jewish people, also the non-Jewish people over there very much would actually really, really, really appreciate and was mesmerized with him. Yeah, and it's actually, so much more can be related. Okay, he had a great voice also. He enjoyed singing. He was doing chatunot, wedding parties in himself, various different banquets, sudat, mitzvot. He would teach poetry with different Jewish songs, I think, which was why the famous Rabbi Shalom Shabazi, another great rabbi we've spoken about before, this would have been around the Shabbat time period in himself. He was a head, let's say, Chazan Shliach Tzibur at the Beit Shra'abi, respectively, and many people will come and listen to his beautiful voice. And it's actually reported over even that various different Muslim dignitaries would actually come riding in their horses before Shabbat on various different trips. There was one time during, I think, a Ramadan fast was reported over, to hear him enjoy his piyut of Bar Yochai, the way he sang it of itself. And he was dressed in white clothes and wrapped in a talit, that really gave him his majestic status. Now, among his students, let's explore some of his children. They became great rabbanim, I believe, including Rabbi Aharon HaKohen, who would say as the head of the Beit Sharabi Yeshiva in Yemen and the president reported over of the Ohel Torah Yeshiva. This was a yeshiva, I believe, that was based in Tel Aviv. Another one of his children was Rabbi HaKohen, who I think was working in a trade, if I'm not mistaken. He was a merchant. And then there was a Rabbi Aharon HaKohen who would actually work, I think, in the Beit Knesset of the Beit Sharabi in Sana'a and Teman, respectively. Also in the Beit Knesset Feret Yisrael in Ramat Gan. That would have been, I think, one of his daughters would get married to Rabbi Shalom Asiri. And Rabbi Shmuel HaKohen was another one of his children, another great rabbi, I think, the Beit Knesset and the Beit Shalom HaKohen in Ramat Gan. Interesting enough, among his students included the famous Rabbi Shalom Yitzchak Halevi Hazaken, Rabbi Chaim Kassar, another great rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before. We actually, I think, dedicated and did a biography video on him. And Rav Shalom Kalazan was another great rabbi. I think he lived between 1910 to 1979. Rosh Yeshiva Sukkot Shalom, if I'm not mistaken. And after he passed away, as we stated before, he would, I believe, pass away in the year 1934. And sadly, I think he lost partly his eyesight and towards the end of his life. And he gave the position of yeshiva leader to his son, who would continue learning and studying very much so in the wee hours of the middle of the night, in the morning, in of itself. Now, he passed away on the 30th of Shvat, 1st of Adar. You could say also I hear from somewhere else. That was his Hilula. I believe on his 60th anniversary after he passed away, there was, in the year 1994, a great Torah institution called the Mara Institute was established in his memory, reported over in Kiryat Sefer. Very interesting stuff. This was a place I believe we visited on this channel before. It's an ultra-Orthodox city. Includes a Torah library over there, many thousands of books, a Torah research institute, and publication of different books on interpretation within regards to morality, halacha, and research. If I'm not mistaken, I think something was also dedicated in New York also, and in various other places in Kiryat Sefer. Rav Shalom Korach, I think, composed something in his honor, which describing the great character and the qualities he had in of himself. So, yeah, friends, it's his Hilula. It's Lamed Shvat. Don't forget to light candles in the great rabbi's memory. Rosh Chodesh Adar. He was one of the great rabbis of his times. And friends, we're a community here. We're learning about the great rabbis of yesteryear. We've covered probably about 60 great rabbis from Yemen already, probably about more than 750 biography videos of great rabbanim. Please spend a little time learning the history of the great Chachamim. If you feel anyone will be interested in watching these videos, please share the videos to those people respectively and subscribe to the channel. Wishing you all a good day, meaningful, and take care.